not drained. It's already drained. Water puddles all over the place. You have to go jumping, and it's filthy.
This is in Kampala.
That's in Kampala. Yeah.
So it's supposed to fix this.
Well, of course, it is supposed to be. These are supposed to be public goods. So it's supposed to be the government, both central government and the Kampala City Authority, which was now also taken over by the president.
Wow.
So these are the authorities that are supposed to fix it. So the physical environment is generally always depressing. But that is on top of course, a very repressive political environment in which I personally live, because where I stay in Kasangati, my home is surrounded 24 hours. Whoever comes in must be interrogated. Why are you going there? Who are you? What are you going to do? And when I move out, I must be followed everywhere I go until I come back by, the police, not clandestinely, but overtly, shadowing me wherever I go. Even when I leave my car and go to meetings, they come after me and even sit in some of the meetings I go to. So the environment is quite repressive, especially for me, obviously because I have been at the forefront of challenging the regime. And so when I leave, I get quite a bit of relief. I get a sense of relaxation. And,
now, on what legal basis is this question directed personally at you? Are all opposition leaders treated the same way?
No, it's completely illegal because, as you may be aware, at some stage, 2011, the police placed a siege, a complete siege around my home, and I was not allowed to leave home even for anybody to come in for 2 weeks. They laid a complete siege around the home. About 300 police laid the siege permanently for 2 weeks until my lawyers went to court and challenged the action. And the court gave clear and categorical orders that what they were doing was illegal, they must vacate. And if they want to, for any reason, restrict my movement or interfere with my freedom, they should do so formally, arrest me and take me and charge me. But they simply act with impunity. It's a clear case of impunity. They have no legal basis for what they are doing, but they go ahead and do it nevertheless. In fact, as we talk today, they have been sieging major media houses in Kampala. And originally they claimed they had a search warrant from court. And these media, and what they did once they came to the premises of these media houses, they dismantled their computers and stopped all operations and, dismissed everybody from the buildings and closed down their operations.
Including the Daily Monitor.
The Daily Monitor, it's other companies, the KFM, which is one of the popular radio stations, the MBFM, all these were called in the red paper. And these media houses went to court. And the same magistrate who had given them a search order said, you have overstepped your mandate. This is not why I gave you a search order. Go and, dismantle people's businesses. And
what was the search order for?
The search order was apparently had been sought by the police to look for a letter that was allegedly written by the coordinator of intelligence, General David Sejusa, who was previously known as General David Tinyefuza. And in that letter, he was asking the chief of internal security to investigate allegations that had been actually published in another media. that there was a plot to assassinate senior government and military officers who were opposed to a plan by Museveni to launch his son, Brigadier Muhoozi, to replace him succeed him as president.
Correct.
And that those who were opposed to Muhoozi succeeding his father were now being targeted for elimination. That was an allegation that was in the media.
It was previously.
It was in the media. It was again reported as a letter that was leaked, a letter written by a political actor who was writing to the president, seeking the president's protection because she was under pressure by these feuding groups within the NRM.
The ruling party.
Yes, to use her. One group seeking to use her against another and asking her to tell lies, and once she refused that she was now being threatened, and so she was writing the president.
I see.
Seeking,
and who was this?
She's a girl called, a lady called Dembe Catherine. She's actually a member of the FDC, an opposition political party, but who, according to that letter that was published, was claiming that she had been approached by some senior people in the government and asked to help them in framing others and trying to get rid of them.
And she wanted to be no part of it.
Yeah, we are going to do. We have a meeting.
You want lunch?
No, we'll order something soon. Just in a few
You want
minutes.
any soft drinks? Should I Steve, Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, orange juice, apple juice,
Maybe we'll start with some water.
water? How many? 3?
Actually, get me a cappuccino.
Cappuccino?
You
want? You want cappuccino?
No,
Water
not now. I'll start with water.
Okay, water.
You know,
So the second letter.
So this
connected.
letter had been in the media for quite some time. Now General Tijifuza or General Sekisa is now known, then writes a letter to the Chief of Intelligence to investigate these matters because he was one of the people cited as part of those to be eliminated, to be assassinated.
Who else allegedly was targeted, as far as the letter is claimed?
Pardon?
Who else were on this target list allegedly?
The Chief of Defense Forces, who has now been removed and appointed the minister,
General Nyakrai.
General Aronda Nyakairima was another person, and there were a number of others. So it is that letter which General Sejusa wrote to his Chief of Intelligence that apparently leaked and was published by the Monitor and later on by the Red Paper. And I think the government believes that that letter was leaked to them maybe by Sejusa himself. And so the court order they sought was to search the premises of these houses to recover that letter. And apparently when they went to the Red Paper, actually, the Red Paper gave them the letter that they published, a copy of the letter they published.
Was it a copy or was it an original? Was it a
I don't
PDF
know.
email?
I don't know. I have not...
because in the 21st century, people normally don't send physical.
Yeah, so I don't know what but apparently they said we want this letter and they gave them the letter.
Okay.
But nonetheless, they have continued to siege
Right.
and stop all operations at the Red Paper. They have continued to siege and stop all operations at the Monitor, in spite of a court order subsequently ordering them to vacate these premises. So we are simply living in a situation where there is a breakdown of the rule of law.
Right.
This is clear acts. These are clear acts of impunity, and that is the same thing that happens when they do what they do to me. It's not that they are doing it within the framework of the law. They are just acting outside the law. They are a law unto themselves.
How do citizens, and where do citizens seek relief?
That's the challenge, because if you are being terrorized by the police, where do you go? And this is precisely my dilemma, you know. Where do I report to? And this is not been, you know, a short-term problem. You may recall that in 2005, I was arrested and charged with terrorism, with rape, with treason, with illegal possession of guns.
Correct.
And the case of rape, which was the only case to be had and judged on merit, was all framed by the police, as it was later discovered in the trial. The chief of criminal investigation
Yes.
actually confessed under oath
Yes.
that she had falsified police documents herself.
Right.
She had paid people to give evidence,
Right.
wrong evidence,
Right.
in my case, and so on and so forth.
Right. What
So
is her name?
Elizabeth Kutesa,
Right.
who happens now, because I later opened a private prosecution on her,
Yes.
which the DPP took over through some processes and frustrated,
And the
but we
DPP
pursued her.
The DPP stands for Director of
Public prosecution. But she could no her work in the Uganda Police Force was no longer tenable. And guess what happened? The Uganda government then got for her a job, a very senior job in Interpol. She is now a senior Interpol officer.
today, as we
Today,
speak.
as we speak, a criminal, a self-confessed criminal under oath in court, there are records. She is a very senior person in Interpol.
Did Interpol do any
Seconded.
vetting or vex?
I have no idea. We wrote to Interpol, actually, giving them some of these facts.
How long ago?
When she was appointed, maybe it's now about 3 years already.
And Interpol took no action.
No action at all.
Did not contact you for more
Not
information.
at all. In fact, my lawyers were the ones who formally wrote, the lawyers who represented me in that case and who had all these legal records. They forwarded them to the Interpol.
So
The
media,
Interpol even never acknowledged.
so media could follow up with your lawyer?
Pardon?
Could media follow up with your lawyer?
Oh, sure.
And
sure,
your lawyer's
sure.
name is?
David Mpanga of AF Mpanga Advocates in Kampala.
Now, in terms of the whole alleged Muhoozi project, what is the substance to that?
Well, the substance, first of all, I think the background is that in reality, we have a military regime in Uganda, only clothed as an elected government. Because you may recall that Mr. Museveni came to power by force of guns. He was not elected. And I was part of the establishment that fought and brought him to power. So it was not a democratic process that brought him to power. It was a war. Once he came to power, he stayed by virtue of that acquiring power with the guns for 10 years without any form of election. Subsequently, a constitution was made under his aegis, in which constitution political parties were formally banned. And so in the next election, the election after the 10 years of no elections was an election only where his party was allowed to contest. And he was the head of the party, he was the head of the government, he was the head of the parliament. So he was literally contesting against himself. And those of us who had struggled with him, hoping that we are struggling for democracy, that's the process that disillusioned us. And we said, no, this is certainly not what we were struggling for. And then we had differences and broke off. So that
Can I
regime...
interject? Did you try to persuade him that
Of course. In all these years, there was an interaction. And it was very clear that, in fact, I wrote a document in 1999 which started the real conflict between me and the establishment. I wrote an analysis of what had happened since 1986 when Museveni came to power up to then, up to 1999, and how the whole idea and the struggle had been completely derailed. So there had
this
been...
was published in the media as well?
Yes. And then they required me to be court-martialed and so on. But what I'm saying is, this military establishment, which controlled state power, did not change. In '96, he organized an election to give some kind of legitimacy that there was a civilian government, and that there was an attempt at democracy. So has been subsequent elections, in which 3 of them I have been a candidate, and they are utterly elections. So we have a military regime essentially clothed as a civilian regime that attempts at having elections.
Now, could you, for readers, for listeners rather, could you give us a little example when you say sham, maybe a little more specific?
Well, first of all, the whole thing starts with who organizes the election. The election is organized by an electoral commission, which is appointed by the president, over which the president has complete power to dismiss anytime he wishes without reference to anybody. In other words, you have an electoral commission that serves entirely at the pleasure of this president, who is also a candidate. And to that extent, you have the candidate really organizing the election for himself. And so you have a register. This electoral commission prepares a register which is so inflated and manipulated to remove voters who are suspected to belong to the opposition and to put same name multiplied many times of people who are known supporters of Museveni or even fictitious, for whom they print ballot papers. Ballot papers, a lot of ballot papers have been actually arrested physically during elections. Predict. We have taken all this to court, and the court has confirmed that this has happened. The killings during the elections, people who are actually shot and killed because they oppose the regime. We have taken all these to court, and the court has agreed on 2 occasions that the elections were not free and fair, and that they were not conducted in accordance with the law. So the question of the shamness of the election is not in dispute. The court has confirmed it. So we have a military regime, and power is really vested essentially in the military. This is why the succession, Museveni's succession, is not really playing out in the political processes, but in the military processes. And that is why the recruitment and rise of his son to the top echelons of the military has become a matter of interest. His son was, first of all, recruited into the military illegally, because there is a very clear, well laid out process within the law, a law actually made by Museveni himself in 2005, when he was in 1992 and 2005, when he was the Minister of Defense. He was President and Minister of Defense. He made the law himself. The law provides how you get a commission on the UPDF, which Muhoozi did not subject himself to.
I see.
Absolutely.
He missed all that state.
Absolutely. Museveni negotiated with the British. Muhoozi was recruited into British Academy, Cadet Academy Sandhurst, from where he came and was commissioned without going through the due process. So he was illegally recruited and taken to, this elitist training school abroad.
Including here in the U.S.
Subsequent to that, after being commissioned illegally into the force, he has had several other trainings, all abroad, in very elitist, institutions, ahead of the process, because the law I talked about, the UPDF Act, provides how one qualifies for training, how one qualifies for promotion. So whereas there are people who have been in the force, recruited formally, have all the qualifications, have stayed there for decades, they have not had a chance to do the courses because he has done in the 10 years he has been in the force. Now, similarly with the promotions, you are not supposed to be considered for promotion to the rank of a colonel. A colonel is a rank below brigadier. To be considered, just to be considered promotion to the rank of colonel, according to Museveni's law itself, should have served in the military for at least 22 years.
Interesting.
Now, Muhoozi has been in the military for 12 years. He is a brigadier. He is a rank above the colonel. So the question is, how do you get illegally recruited? You get all these training courses irregularly. You become promoted. So, self promotions. Muhoozi has never worked in any other formation of the UPDF except one that guards the president. In all these years, from the time he was recruited up to now, he has been only in the unit that guards the president.
He has not seen combat.
No, he's been in the unit that guards, which has been expanded to now become a complete force. It is now called the Special Forces Command,
How large is it?
which is superintends over. There are 3 commands in the military, so he is commanding one of them.
I see.
And so clearly, this is seen as an attempt at putting his son in control of the institution which controls the politics, which controls the power in the country. And so this is what General Segusa was also commenting on, saying that actually this project, if it is there, it's becoming divisive, and it is likely to undermine stability of the country.
As a consequence of this letter that he is supposed to have authored, he has now paid a political price as well. And what is that so far?
Well, I don't know whether he has paid the political price yet. Don't forget that this is not the first time that General Tinyefuza is having, rap with the authorities.
Right. How would you characterize the consequences so far?
Well, he's had the expected response. I'm sure he himself expected, very violent response from the authorities once you talk about that project of Muhoozi. But that is where it is. You know, his home has been searched, his offices has been searched. He's been in London. It seems he's fearing to go back because indeed they have made it clear that if he goes back, they will grab him. But it's still unfolding. I understand he wrote another letter now, yesterday or something, which I haven't yet exactly understood what he was saying. But you know, whether he has the guts to now walk the talk is still out there to be seen. But what is clear is that this is not just a matter of suggestion. This is a very, very explosive matter within the UPDF, within the NRM, within the government, within the country. The question of succession, as long as Museveni continues to abolish term limits, to ensure that there is no democracy, that he is the one who will determine who becomes the leader and so on and so forth, for sure as day follows night, there will be a breakdown within the government. There will be strife, and our own struggle is to try and avoid a complete collapse of the state, so that we have another failed state in Uganda.
So things are that serious in your assessment?
Absolutely, absolutely. The question of Museveni collapsing is no longer in debate. In fact, we are already very clearly in the post-Museveni era. The question is how to manage the transition. And if the transition is mismanaged, we can definitely descend into a failed state. If we can make sense of how to manage the transition in a responsible way, including people who are within NRM, who are quite obviously as worried as we are in the opposition, we need to creatively find a way of how to manage the transition.
And when you say transition, because as far as I understand, the president is still talking about the 2016 elections. So he obviously has a very different assessment of the dynamics.
Well, as I have said, an election means nothing. Museveni will want every 5 years to stage, it's a ritual, to stage some process, to say, look, I am still popular, you can see I'm elected, I am not just a military dictator like Amin. Amin never called an election, I am calling an election. So it's just a ritual.
And when you talk about the responsible transition, give us some examples. What are some prospects?
Well, I think the prospects are good because, first of all, I think the sense within the whole country is that there must be change. There is some kind of unanimity, irrespective of which political opinion or shade of opinion you ask. People say, no, things must simply change. This corruption must stop, and so on and so forth. That demand for change is palpable all over the country. Now, secondly, in the political elite, the leaders, I think there is now increasing appreciation that you cannot have your cake and eat it. And this is, I think, why people like Professor Bukenya, who was only recently Vice President of Museveni, has come up to say, no, this time I'm going to challenge Museveni if he tries to stand. Unless I'm dead, we'll definitely do this. So there is increasing emboldenment within the regime, and therefore the prospect for a management process that does not cause a total breakdown is possible, and I'm optimistic. But we need to work on it very actively. and urgently, so that the meltdown does not overtake us.
What about your own political future?
Well, my own political future remains the same. I've never set out to be anything in the politics. I have always set out to achieve certain changes within the politics. And I think some progress has been made in terms of achieving those changes. I will continue to engage myself in whatever way, whatever manner, to see that those changes are actuated and that they are entrenched, so that future generations don't have to go through what we've gone through.
If you had an opportunity to serve in the future as president,
It's frankly not my ambition to be president. But the reason I have offered myself 3 times to be president is within the framework of that struggle to make sure that there is sustainable change that engenders peace, stability, and development in the country. And if the call still comes to within that framework, I will not deny participation in that. But if there was to be transition without that call being necessary, and there was a transition to stable democratic dispensation, I would rather, go and live a quiet private life.
so more than the president, you would be willing to retire to a farm?
Well, retiring to the farm has been vulgarized. Because we've heard about it in the last 30 years, and there is clearly no intention of him retiring to that farm. No, I think I am really a private person, right from my upbringing. I have never sought public office or political office. I have already been embroiled into it. When I was growing up, I never, contested to become a student leader, police leader, or
You trained as a doctor?
yeah.
One final question. Assessing where things stand today, if you were in General Museveni's shoes, what would you do?
Well, I think the call is very clear only that the ears are no longer here. What is required, if one had to make sense of the mess he has put the country into, would be to cause a national conference, an all-inclusive national conference in which all stakeholders come to the table and determine the way forward. And the determination of that way forward would mean that they would agree on critical reforms to be undertaken within the politics, within the administration, that can ensure a democratic transition. So those reforms within a context of a national conference would be the first step. And of course, once those reforms are agreed upon, the same conference, I believe, would have to work out a way of ensuring that they are actually implemented. Some guarantors of implementation of those reforms, because having an agreement is one thing, implementing it is completely another thing. So that's, I think, what a reasonable person in the position that Mr. Museveni finds himself in would do to save our country.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.